Oh, right. I don't know what was going on. I had some technical difficulties. That's the first time that I've had to press record and then stop recording because I couldn't hear my voice through this microphone and I didn't know what was going on. Anyway, welcome back to another episode of the Mincho Network. It feels weird calling it that. I'm just going to keep calling it that because I've already set the name. It is the 29th of January, Sunday the 29th of January, 2023. It is 8:26 a.m. And I'm coming back again from my little study / spare room. Isn't it crazy how quickly your life can change? We're only really ever one conversation or one decision away from having pivotal moments in our life that completely just change the course, change the direction of how you think your life's going to go and what you think you're worth. And I think that's why it's so important to go out and do new things and try new things and experience different things because, you never know. You never know what's going to come from things. I'm talking specifically right now about I'm 29 days into this podcast, and it hasn't really changed my life at all, other than the fact that I'm sitting down every day, making a conscious effort to think and reflect. And there's this weird element where it kind of sometimes feels like it might be performative, but also on the very same token, I have these conversations with my wife. I have these conversations with my friends. It's not like something that I'm doing for the sake of an audience, but it often feels like that because I know that I'm uploading it and I'm introducing it as welcome back to this episode. Welcome back to the Mincho Network. But when I used to write in my diary, I would sign it off at the end, Mincho, and so that was like my way of determining. I would talk to myself, hey bud, do this, hey bud, do that. And I feel like in a way, this is allowing me to do that, but to a broader scope. I'm talking to myself, but if it was just me talking to myself, it wouldn't be interesting to listen to. It wouldn't be interesting for me to upload. But I'm 29 days into this. I'm also 29 days completely sober, stone cold sober. I'm 2 and a bit weeks into going to the gym and exercising again. I'm eating relatively healthy. My diet's been really good. I haven't had much takeout this year, as opposed to when I used to just sit around, even towards the end of November and December. I would just sit around getting stoned, ordering Uber Eats. There's some really good pizza places around. I'd eat probably a pizza a week. On my days where I was getting stoned, I have 5, 6, 7 coffees in a day. Snacking, I'd eat a bag of chips a day, maybe. Lots of lollies, lots of shit that's just not good for me. I was doing a lot of not good stuff, and I wasn't getting out and getting my heart rate up at all or anything like that. I wasn't doing anything for my health to benefit me. And so I was just sitting around like this fat, lazy slob. And I'd always make these comments about how I felt like I was fat and I felt like I was gross, but I just wasn't motivated at all to do anything. And I guess you don't need to be motivated. You just need to be disciplined. But even then, I'm in a position right now where, part of the reason I'm doing all of this stuff and being healthier is because I've got nothing else to do. When I got stoned, time just disappears from you. So it's fine, right? But now I've got all this time where I'm sitting around doing nothing and I feel lazy and I feel awful. And I'm not thinking differently because I'm not stoned. So I've got to get up and I've got to get out and get active and start moving and doing things. And now that I'm moving and doing things, it's like working on this. There's this want. Like yesterday I had a rest day. And I was kind of glad that I didn't do anything because I've been pushing myself a bit harder than I ever have before, mostly so that when I go to the gym, I get rid of those demons that cause me to be a fat, lazy stoner. And so last night I just came home and I crashed. I had dinner with Mads and we crashed pretty early. And today I woke up, I'm feeling really good. But yesterday I felt like I could go for a run. And today I feel like I couldn't be fucked running at all. But tonight I have to because I had yesterday off, And so for me, it's just like, it's interesting. This all started because I got back into a gym membership. I started going back to the gym, and then my mate James said, "Hey, come out and do a boxing session with me." And I was just absolutely rooted. Like, I don't think I've ever felt more unfit. I've been more unfit for sure, but I've never felt so unfit because I was in a group of 10, 15 people. And it was just, but I pushed through and I did it, whatever. And then like my legs were sore and everything was sore, and I want to go back and do it with him, but I need to be fitter. I don't want to have the same reaction as I did last time. I want it to look like and feel like I've been putting in that effort. So, there's an element of it where I'm really doing it for the glory of like being able to go back and have other people see my improvements, but there's no guarantee that the same class is going to be there. So I just think it's all interesting. It's interesting how we treat ourselves when nobody's looking. You know what I mean? Or when you think nobody's looking. And I mean, you got to live your life in a way that nobody, like, you don't think about who is looking, because if you do, you'd just be paranoid all the time, and you'd always be living this false narrative, because you're going to be reacted to. Things are going to be reacted to. So, but anyway, we're all just one moment away. I can't remember exactly what it was I read or when I read it or who had said it, but it was something to do with we have these moments in our life where we were someone before them, and then those moments happen, and then we are someone afterwards, right? And so the most common example of that is relationship breakdowns, like boyfriend, girlfriend split up, or husband and wife get divorced, family member deaths or pet deaths, someone you love, and going through that grieving process and loss. But it could be as simple as conversations, perspective, right? It all just comes back down to the one word, which is perspective. You are someone before these moments of perspective shift, and following those moments, you've got new information, so you can't live your life the same way. You know what I mean? Think about... Actually, I might not say that on here because I don't know no, it's not for kids. Fuck it. If you're a kid and you're listening to this, I'm so sorry. But think about when you learn about, Santa and the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy. You can't continue living your life once you know about them as an adult. And so that's a perspective shifting moment. So when you learn these things, and and that's why you've got to be exposed to more, and you've got to be learning all the time, is because if you don't, you'll get stuck, and you'll just have this thought process, this way of living that you think is right, and it's probably not. And there's not really a wrong way of living your life. There's just sheltered ways of living your life, right? Because if you don't expose yourself, or if you aren't exposed at all to the atrocities that can happen, then you'll always be surprised when you hear things. And I don't mean that go out of your way and look up fucking, all these heinous things, but even just think about like nature, you know what I mean? Like we grow up and we know that, like, I don't know, lions hunt deer or gazelle or whatever in the plains, in the forests, wherever they live, the African plains, right? But then you see a video of them working together to bring down one of these giant wildebeests, and it's like distressing. You're like, what the hell? The same thing goes for, like, I think just things in general. If you don't know the way something works and you just are naive about it and you think it works a certain way, and then you're exposed to it working a certain way, you have a duty to yourself to adjust your perspective, and it should put you in a position where you want to go and adjust your perspective again. Here's an example. I was raised younger, my mum used to smoke all the time, smoke pot. And I was led to believe that it ruined her life. And in a way it did, right? In a way that she really wasn't having a good time, and she was always smoking. But it's like the chicken and the egg. Did she not feel good, so she smoked, or did she smoke and that made her not feel good? And I guess it was a cyclical thing at that point where it was habitual. She just couldn't get out of it, right? And so for the longest time, I was super against weed. I through high school, you ask anyone I went to high school with, and they'll tell you I was vehemently against it. I got offered it at a party once, and I was that fucking loser that rejected it and said, "Oh no, thanks. My mum used to be addicted. It ruined her life." Like, just fucking silly stuff because I had one perspective, and it was a sheltered perspective, and it was a perspective that had been formed through watching somebody else's trauma, right? But it was a false perspective because I hadn't experienced it myself. So I was just saying, no, this ruined my mum's life, and I love my mum. Therefore, I can't do this because it will ruin my life. And then I smoked weed for the first time, and it didn't kill me, and it didn't ruin my life. I wasn't hooked on it. I wasn't one of those things where I smoked it once, and then the next day I was looking back on it, and I was thinking about how much fun I had, how good it was, and I couldn't talk to my mum about it because if she found out I smoked weed, it ruined her life. Like I'd be fucking kicked out of the family, right? And so I kept it a secret from everybody. Like I had maybe 10 people that knew at any point, and then over time I started to develop those same habits. Now, the perspective shift that I had, the reason I started smoking weed was I realized that weed didn't ruin my mum's life. My mum ruined her life because of weed, right? And there's a difference there. She chose to continue to go back, and it doesn't have that same physical hold as like heroin does, or like some opiates do. But it has a really strong mental hold, and so there's an element of physicality, but it's mostly mental. And if you can't get that mental right, you'll just keep going back to it. And so eventually she quit, and she quit cold turkey, and she stopped forever. And I would argue that stopped because of a perspective shift, right? You either keep doing it and this happens, or you stop doing it and this happens, or I want the second thing to happen, so I'm going to stop doing this, right? And in the context of this conversation, it was marrying my stepdad. He wouldn't have a bar of it, and so she quit. I realized after I smoked weed for the first time that my parents were trying to figure out, just like I was, figure life out, trying to figure it out. And they didn't know everything. And so I could trust a lot of opinions, and I could trust a lot of things. But I also, when it came down to what do I think about something, I can look at what they think about it, and then I can form my own opinion that's separate to them. And I don't have to love them any less for having a different opinion. Or they don't have to love me any less for having a different opinion. And in fact, having differing opinions is a positive thing. It comes back to something we've talked about on here before, which is polarity. You need to be exposed to people who have different opinions. You need to have those conversations, because if you only are talking into that tunnel, vacuum, right? If you're only talking into that vacuum, you only live your life in a vacuum of the same thought. You hang around with the same people who all think the same way. It could be detrimental, because you could miss important things, and you know what I mean? I just think that perspective is so important, and so I like to talk to people, and I like to engage with them on deep levels where I find out things that I like to ask questions that other people don't generally like to ask, or that other people don't generally ask themselves, or they don't like to answer. And Mads gets worried about it sometimes, but there was one of my mates, Dan. I was asking him a bunch of questions after the passing of his partner, and Mads was like, yo, we're out for drinks, like this is, it was sort of like just before we started getting fucked up on drinks. So, and I was just asking questions, and she was concerned, and she sort of like, gave me the eyes like, fuck, stop asking these questions. And it wasn't anything like crazy. I was just, I have this curiosity because I have a partner and I could lose her, and I want to know what that's like. You know what I mean? And she asked him after I'd left, does it bother you that he's asking you these questions? And he sort of thought about it for a moment. And he said, no, because it's like, it was more than the surface level, Oh, do you see maths? Maybe you watch Love Island? Like it was, I was asking questions. I was genuinely interested in and deeply intrigued, and I was wanting to know him a bit more personally. And I think, for most people, I'm going to argue that most people wouldn't like it because they don't think about it in that perspective. But in that moment, Dan was appreciative of me asking those questions, those deeper questions, because I too don't like that surface level shit. I want to talk about, how your brain works. I want to talk about philosophy. I want to talk about your childhood. I want to talk about like specific memories you have growing up. I want to talk about the struggles. I want to talk about all these things because I have stories to tell. And I also have an ear that wants to listen to other stories, because I feel like if I wasn't afforded the opportunity to talk openly about my childhood, I would be in a very different situation right now. And so I want to afford other people that avenue, even if they don't know that they need that. I want to be that person that can allow them to, I guess, open up in a way. Anyway, isn't it crazy how your life can change from moment to moment, just through perspective shifts? And the more you want them to happen, the less likely they are to happen. And the moment you stop wanting them to happen is right when they're about to happen.